Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Michael Hall
What up, though?
and Michael Reed.
How are you doing there, young feller?
I'm doing fantastic, and we're joined by a special guest, the second time, Maurice Hawkins. How you doing tonight, sir?
Greetings and thank you, salutations, and hail to the Redskins.
Yes,
There you
sir.
go.
Absolutely. And
Love it.
today is kind of a celebratory episode for us, everybody. I'll let Maurice kind of explain it, but generosity is not coming in any in short spats at all. And so Maurice, if you want to kind of update everybody and us all three of what you have, what the news is.
Well, the news is that the Redskins tweet team is going to heavily promote the Burgundy Zone podcast. We have a broad, collection of Redskins fans that interacts with our hashtag on a variety of social media platforms, on a day-to-day basis. So between our Twitter presence, our Facebook group, it gives us a nice, solid population of Redskins fans to help bring awareness of this podcast and the quality Redskins content that you guys have generated. So as we move forward into the season, I hope this partnership will be fruitful for everyone involved, and hope we can grow your listener audience of this podcast.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Maurice, because not
Yes.
sure if you guys know this, but I mean, Redskins tweet team is worldwide. What Maurice has built there with the Redskins tweet team is nothing short of impressive, and just the generosity of you reaching out and saying that they'd be willing to even talk about it is a feat in itself. The fact that they're able to put us on another platform to be able to talk to more Redskins fans, I'll be forever in your debt, Maurice. I'm not. I don't mean to speak for Michael and Reed, but I'm just saying, dude, I can't be more ecstatic about the opportunity, and we can't wait to start kicking some butt.
Right,
Right.
right. I'm looking forward to it as well, and I think it's going to be a great partnership moving
Yeah.
forward.
And that's the cool thing about Redskins tweet team is it is global. Like you said, you got fans in the UK. The last time we had you on the show and we shared it, you had a bunch of people commenting. They're like love from the UK, and it's so interesting. It's so cool the way that you kind of grew that and built that.
Right.
So thank you so much, man. This is going to be a lot of fun. We look forward to it.
Oh, no problem. I think it's my pleasure. I think one of the beautiful things about the information age is that it gives fans the opportunity, like yourselves, to put together quality content to be consumed by a wide audience. So I'm just really excited about the partnership going into 2020 and seeing how we can help grow this podcast.
Absolutely, Maurice. I mean, I can't thank you enough. But look, that being said, we have to bring this down a little bit. After last week, Cody Lattimers, the newly acquired wide receiver from the New York Giants that came to the Redskins, had gotten into an altercation, had fired his firearm at an apartment complex, got locked up for it. But the thing is, his lawyer came out and said that this was actually over a sexual assault altercation with his 4-year-old son. Reed, I'll go to you first. What is your initial reaction?
Obviously, when I first heard everything before all the details came out, I was disappointed. I automatically my first thoughts were, well, there goes Corey Latimer.
Yeah.
I mean, with Ron Rivera, we were just talking about how we had dodged a bullet with Quentin Dunbar. But now that this whole curveball has kind of gotten thrown in, if that's what he did, I think that just about every parent and everybody
Yeah.
in America would understand. I mean, I, like some people had said, I mean, give the guy a pay raise if that's the case. I mean, you can't let something like that happen to your family, especially not your 4-year-old child. So if that is the case, I would not blame him whatsoever. And honestly, I wish that I hope the best for his child, and I hope the best for him, and
Yeah.
I hope that he gets a chance to prove it on the field.
Yeah,
Play.
and honestly, I feel terrible for the guy because I remember in there was a video that came out that he was like speaking at a conference and he had talked about how he was battling depression and he was even
Yeah,
contemplating suicide at times. And so with a situation like this, you immediately feel bad for the guy because you know that he's going to go back to that place mentally if this actually does occur in his life. So I was more worried about Cody Latimer. What about you, Michael?
Yeah, like you said, when I first heard the story, I was kind of just like, well, I guess he's gonna get cut from the team because Ron's about the whole like the great culture, the new culture, discipline. But as the facts start coming out, you hear more and more stuff. It's kind of like Reed said, it's kind of like, well, I don't know if the guy deserves to get cut from the team anymore. I mean, as any parent would do in any like walk of life, they would stop that. I could see definitely Ron maybe suspending him for something like that, or not suspending, but maybe like fining him, maybe like a low amount of money, and then sending that to a charity of some like sexual like assault for like kids charity or something like that. Just because that's the kind of guy that Ron Rivera is. But just overall, I just think that I hope Lattimore gets a second chance if everything is true, and hopefully he can contribute if he stays on the team.
Yeah, and Maurice, before I go to you, Daryl Alston wants to know, should there, because we asked for fan questions, and he said, do we make Cody Lattimor a team captain for the character he showed attempting to protect his child? I know it's a little bit of a joke there, but Maurice, what is your reaction to the Cody Lattimor news?
I think the first thing that has to happen is we need to let the legal system
Yeah.
take its course and get all the facts on the table. If I was a Redskins, I would not do anything to him right now, but I will wait to see what the facts come out. And if the facts come out in the case that are in alignment to what Cody Lattimer's attorney stated, then I think that whatever disciplinary response the team would leverage against him should be minimal. Again, we don't want to advocate any kind of vigilante behavior.
Right.
However, given the gravity of the offense against his child, you can understand. I think most parents, most people in general, are going to be emotionally compromised when they find out something like that happens to their child. So, not excusing the behavior,
Right.
but I definitely can understand it, and hopefully, the courts will see that as well, and Cody can resume his career with the Burgundy and Gold.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing that comes to mind is the movie A Time to Kill. One of my favorites. I'm sorry to
Great
say that. I don't
movie.
mean to
Great
say the
movie.
K word. But the fact is, in a situation like that, I know that obviously he shouldn't be shooting at an apartment complex because obviously there could be victims, innocent victims involved that had nothing to do with it based on how well he's aiming, I guess you could say. But that part of it is very dumb on his part. But you have to imagine anybody in that scenario, I couldn't imagine the kind of emotional and feelings that he was getting at that time.
Right.
So I can't sit here and judge him for it, but at the same time, it was dumb to just shoot an apartment complex.
Right.
And I completely understand if that has to be a thing. Now, if I'm Ron Rivera in that aspect, let the justice do, like you said, Maurice, let the justice system do its work. But I think that there should be, like Hall said, there should be some sort of fine along with that because that's just
Right.
you can't just shoot
No,
a
no,
random
no.
apartment
Right.
complex.
No.
And the good thing is though, Ron Rivera, the one thing about him is he does always stress to his players that family first. Family's the most important thing in the world, and that's always kind of been his thing. If you look back in his Carolina days, and so I would imagine he will understand. But you're right, there should be some sort of penalty. But also, yes, they deserve to die, and I hope they burn in hell. Worst Samuel L. Jackson impression ever, but it's a great movie.
But we knew who it was, so it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, I killed him. I'll do it again.
It's not good for your defense, sir.
Dude, it's such a good movie if you haven't seen it already. But the fact is, I think everyone is going to be along the lines the same way, saying, look, Latimer, you were in the right in some sort of way, but there needs to be some sort of limitation on your behavior, in your reaction. Right. But that being said, I'm not the guy upstairs. I'm not sitting here judging him, So that's between him and the maker, right? Sorry, Maurice.
I'm sorry. I wonder if this is an example of Latimer making a really bad decision because he's been isolated like all of us have been because of COVID-19. I wonder if this was a normal off season and he was interacting with players and going to Redskins Park, that he might have been able to talk to somebody and someone could have interceded and could have done something different. I'm wondering if this is a casualty of the teams and the players being separated because of COVID-19.
You bring up a great point because if Redskins Park was open right now, I mean, or any of the ball clubs, there could be a legit argument being made. Would they be back? Would he be back in Colorado, or would he be here in Virginia for like the rookie minicamp and getting ready? You really don't know. So Maurice, that's actually a really good point by you. Sorry, Reed.
Right. Oh yeah, I was just going to add to that. You're completely right. I mean, just sitting in quarantine, stewing on things a little bit, basking on it, and already on top of the depression. like we said, I don't think any parent can blame him whatsoever. That doesn't necessarily make his response to it correct, but I think everybody can kind of understand where he's coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can't blame the cat because I think everyone react the same way. Now, that being said, we did have another fan question, and this is from Ryan Taylor. He wants to know, where do you think the Redskins defense will be at the end of the season in terms of ranking? Hall, I'll go to you first with this.
Obviously, barring any major injury to the starting 11 or the starting 14, if you want to add rotational players in there. I would hopefully give them, with Del Rio and Rivera being such defensive guys, I think they're going to put them in the correct places every week to succeed. So I'll definitely, the ceiling would be, or the floor, I guess I would say, that would be at number 10, a top 10 defense. But I could definitely, the ceiling, could definitely see it being a top 6, top 5 defense, with that defensive front 7 being so like stout that it is, and then hopefully that'll back up the secondary, and obviously with the addition of Chase Young. So yeah, definitely the ceiling is a top 5, top 6, but the floor being a top 10.
Yeah, and that's very optimistic, and I'm sure that a lot of Redskins fans after the acquisition of Chase Young are going to be echoing that statement. What about you, Maurice? Do you agree with Hall?
Yeah, I could see them being a top 10 defense, barring any major injuries to the defensive team. But I think what we're starting to see with the Redskins is what you saw with the 49ers. Like, they started just acquiring so much raw talent that eventually, the aggregate of that talent just begins to overwhelm opposing teams. So, I mean, when you think about that, just the front four, I mean, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Chase Young, Marquez Sweat. You got the old man, Ryan Kerrigan.
Yeah.
I mean, who would have thought that Ryan Kerrigan would have been relegated as kind of like a side character?
Right.
I mean, just letting you know the level of talent with this defense. So, I definitely think a top 10 defense for sure.
Yeah, and I think you're right along with that. And I think the one difference maker here is I think you're correct, Hall. I do think it can be around a top 10 defense. And the reason I believe that is because of one reason and one player alone, and that's actually Landon Collins, solidifying that back end of the defense. If they didn't have a Pro Bowl veteran there at that position capping the defense, I think the Redskins could be beat deep downfield. But with him at the helm, with how smart he is and savvy he is, I think this team can be a top 10 defense this year. What about you, Reed?
Yeah, I think that judging by the last couple of seasons, really the last 3 years, you can never count out injuries. Injuries play such a huge part in it, but I think you're completely right. If they're healthy, if they're completely healthy and everything's going right, this defense, there's no reason that, I mean, the talent, they couldn't finish close to the top 5, but with the way it is, and it really, so much of it depends on the offense, how much the defense is on the field. We've seen it before where Redskins defenses have been expected to be pretty good and the offense just can't get it done. They can't stay on the field. So the defense has to be on the field a lot longer and they get winded. So I would say the floor would maybe be somewhere around 15 or so, but they have the potential to go up into the top 5, especially. I mean, some people look at the secondary as kind of a whole, but I think that they have some talented guys out there in this front four and this rotation on the defensive line is really just going to make their lives easier. And they do have some talent back there, some athletic talent guys, especially at the cornerback position. So I'm excited for it, man. I think if everything goes right, they can definitely be one of the top defensive units in the league.
Yeah, and you have to think about it. You have to imagine a football X's and O's scale. A lot of the times when you have a difference maker at a position, you're able to double team them. You're able to do certain things to be able to solidify that and take them out of the play. Now with the Redskins defensive line right now, the way that's shaping out, you can't double anybody. Because if you give Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Matt Ioannidis, if you give Chase Young one-on-one, they're going to win that matchup. And they're going to win it easily. And they proved that last year, even though they were in a kind of a conservative style defense, not like this year where Jack Del Rio said, we're going to be attacking dudes and we're going after the quarterback. I think that alone speaks volumes about what they're going to be able to produce this season on the football field. And sky's the limit, honestly. I'm just praying we can go one offseason without a Redskins player making a guarantee. That's all I'm hoping for. Yeah. Every year, first it was like Pierre Garçon, and then it was DJ Swearinger, and then I forgot who it was last year, but somebody else said something about that defense. It's just like, stop. One offseason, let's just go into it being the underdog. Can we not say anything yet?
Right.
All right. Now, one thing I did see today, I'm not sure if you guys saw this, Troy Apke was actually rated as one of the best free safeties by Pro Football Focus. Did you guys see that today?
I did. Yeah, he was one of the top four from this draft class behind what was it? Derwin James, Minka Fitzpatrick, and forget who the third person was, but that was pretty impressive for somebody who can't tackle.
You're not wrong about that. The boy can cover. He did have a couple turnovers last season. It was good to see that because coming in, we all thought that he was just going to be a special teamer. But now he actually looks like he's actually producing a little bit. I'm not sure if he's going to be the starting free safety because I think Sean Davis is going to take that. But it was uplifting to say the least to be able to hear that about Troy Apke, to say that there is some sort of productivity coming with him. I mean, it's got good for the Redskins defense because they're going to need the depth there in the back end.
Right, especially being somebody that nobody ever talks about. When you talk about the secondary, everybody wants to talk about, especially at free safety, they want to talk about Sean Davis or bringing somebody in. So Apke is always kind of the forgotten piece out there, but he did have some pretty good games last year. When he filled in, had a couple of interceptions, and he played pretty well. So he has a natural ability. Remember what he ran at the combine. So who knows? Maybe he could surprise you. Maybe he could see the field a lot more here in year 3.
Yeah. I mean, everyone counted him out after his rookie year. Everyone was like, "Oh, that guy can't play. He was a waste of a draft pick." Like blah blah blah. So for him to show that productivity, like going forward, and hopefully he'll take some more steps this upcoming year, and make some plays on special teams, and if needed, make some plays on the back end, turnover wise. And like you said, maybe he can be one of those diamond in the roughs that pans out. Maybe just took him. He's one of those what do you call it? Those slow starters that just blossoms in their second or third year in the league.
And that would be great for the Redskins, to say the least.
I think one of the things that fans and I would say so-called NFL experts need to remember is that there is a level of development that these players have to go through, when they're drafted. I mean, they're not always going to come into the NFL and they're going to be like, all pro. Like a lot of quality players develop over several years of coaching, weight program, changing their diets, gaining experience, in playing games, and I think that's something we might be seeing with Troy Apke. But I think a lot of times, like just because a player doesn't have a monster year their first year, it doesn't mean they're a lost cause. So I think that, you see a lot of players that you didn't know who they were in year 1, and then year 3. I mean, I don't recall people talking about Richard Sherman like he was going to be one of the best corners in the league when he came in. Nor do I remember people talking about Darrelle Revis like that. I'll just use those two players as an example. Like they came in quietly and then they became superstars because they developed their craft. So,
right, especially being a mid to late round pick. That's kind of where you're taking guys who you see have the ability. They're missing the day one starter ability, or there's somebody that needs a little bit more experience, and that's why you draft those guys is to provide depth and hopefully build them up, and maybe one day they can be something for you and they can play. So hopefully year 3 we will see Apke take a pretty big leap, and maybe, who knows, maybe he will see the field a lot more and maybe he'll produce.
Yeah, we've talked about it the past couple weeks with Jimmy Moreland's comments on Twitter talking about, in the NFL, the way you progress is the mental game. And everyone has to get over that mental hurdle of performing like a pro, acting like a pro. I know with all the recent reports, it doesn't really seem that way around Redskins Park, but it's good to see that they're actually producing these rookies and they're actually being able to get something out of them because, look, there hasn't been much to be happy about since the end of last year. But look, the Redskins are looking up. And speaking of the Redskins, I wanted to go do a little brief exercise with you guys. We talked about it earlier in the week. We don't have to do top 3 players because it's not really going to work out that way. We're not going to have that many players. But Hall, I'll go to you first. Is there a player that you wish would have stayed with the Redskins, either by free agency, trade, whatever have you, anything that happened to them? Is there a player that career got stopped short with the Redskins that you wish would have stayed in the burgundy and gold?
Well, obviously everyone's going to go with the good old number 21 behind you, Sean Taylor. But I feel like that's just low-bearing fruit, like the easy one to go to. Mm-hmm. So I would take it all the way back to the early 2000s, I want to say, when we decided to trade Champ Bailey for Clinton Portis. And, of course, Champ Bailey goes on to be the Hall of Fame cornerback that stayed with the Broncos for so many years, won a Super Bowl finally, which I was happy for him because Champ's always been my guy. But, Champ Bailey, I just remember that when we drafted him back then, he was always one of my top 2 or 3 players in the league, especially because he was a Redskin. But just a young guy playing football and just watching and growing up playing and watching football, he was always one of those guys I was just like, man, I want to be like him when I get older. And I just wish that he stayed with the Redskins, retired a Redskin, and would have been one of the Redskin greats.
Yeah, and that's one of the I hate having that argument between fans because then you have to talk about what would have the productivity been if Champ Bailey would have stayed versus Clinton Portis. And look, Clinton Portis gave Redskins Nation a lot of great times,
Without a doubt,
and a lot of happiness. But I hate having that argument because look, you're right. Champ Bailey, his career went along for a long time, an All-Pro and his future Hall of Famer, and we would have loved to see him finish his career in burgundy and gold. Maurice, do you have anybody that comes to mind?
Well, Hall just stole mine, so I was here like, oh my God. But I would say for me, I think we should have found a way to keep Pierre Garcon and Deshaun Jackson. I feel like I think the last playoff appearance we had was when we had both Pierre and Deshaun on the team, and especially Pierre, because Pierre was that veteran that was going to get those tough yards. He intimidated opposing team defensive backs. I mean, he had an angriness about him. He was a natural leader. Deshaun just has exceptional ball tracking skills and just ridiculous speed. So that's the skill sets that they brought to the Redskins receiving unit were second to none. And you could argue that our receiving unit has been complete and utter trash since their departure. So, I mean, right now we're starting to see some changes with Terry McLaurin. I mean, he's like you can honestly say the first, flash of brilliance we've had in the receiving corps in a while. But
since Santana.
So we should have really found a way to keep Pierre and Deshaun, at least one of them, but we should have found a way to make that happen.
Yeah, and I'll never forget that the mouth guard that he had, with the saber tooth on it. That was vicious. Yeah, the fangs on it.
It fit him so well.
It did. And Pierre Garcon brought a toughness to this offense. He was the type of dude that didn't shy down from contact or engaging with a defender. I absolutely loved Pierre Garcon's game, especially with Deshaun Jackson. One of the best, like you said, Maurice, one of the best ball tracers downfield. It's absolutely insane the way he can track a ball in midair, and he's very good at catching the football as well. That's a great one, Maurice. Now, Reed, who's yours?
So just in case, I wrote a list down of 6 players, but none of them have been taken yet, which I'm happy about. I figured we were going to leave out Sean Taylor. If we hadn't drafted Chase Young this year, then I think the obvious answer would be Preston Smith after what he did last year for Green Bay. However, I'm going to go with somebody else. Hall went with a cornerback. I'm going to go with another corner that is kind of an enigma to some Redskins fans. I'm going to go with Carlos Rogers.
Okay.
Carlos Rogers was always an average to above average cornerback for the Washington Redskins. But the one thing about Carlos Rogers was he could never catch. He would always drop a bunch of interceptions. All of a sudden he leaves. He signs with San Francisco. He has 6 picks and he makes the Pro Bowl that first year. Carlos Rogers was a good corner. After that, it took us a little bit. I know that
he got eye surgery in San Francisco.
Yeah, right. Yeah, got LASIK like old Jameis.
Yeah.
But Carlos Rogers is somebody who it was always played good on the field. The stats didn't always it didn't transition, like you didn't see it on the stat page, but he always played very good. It's just he didn't have a lot of interceptions with the Redskins. He leaves there, and then all of a sudden he goes to San Fran and makes a Pro Bowl with 6 interceptions in his first year.
Yeah, and it brings me back to those days because I remember when the Redskins used to play Blowing Money Fast by Rick Ross in the stadium. And I remember Carlos Rogers and everyone dancing on the field. I'll never forget that game. That was such a cool and great feeling. It brings me back to those days. Now, I'm so glad none of you guys picked him. He's a Hokie, and his career was cut short. Kaishan Jarrett. I wish that we could have seen his future develop here, especially at the safety position. Ever since Sean Taylor, we have not been able to solidify that back end. Kaishan Jarrett did that for that one season, and he did it great. I'll never forget that fumble he had. Was that against Dallas over at the sideline? So. And he popped out, and it went right to, was it Quentin Dunbar who got? I can't remember who the corner. I think it was Josh Norman who got it. And the way that he played the game, he was bringing a spark to this defense from the secondary. Unfortunately, that nerve damage to his neck stopped his career. But credit to the Redskins, they gave him a job in the secondary because he's a smart kid. He's a tough kid, and it's unfortunate what happened to him. And I'm glad that he's able to at least produce for the Redskins in some capacity. I wish I could have seen him continue his career here.
Right.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Can I go ahead and name the other 4? I won't talk.
Just do one. Just do one. because then
real
we
quick.
can talk about the other ones.
We got Chad Reinhardt on there, Lorenzo Alexander, who ended up making a Pro Bowl, Ryan Clark,
Ooh.
who left, made a Pro Bowl and won a Super Bowl with the Steelers, came back, wasn't the same player. And then another one that some 90s Redskins fans might remember, Trent Green. Remember old Trent Green? Trent Green went on to have a pretty good career after he left the Burgundy and Gold.
Oh,
That's
yes, he did. That's actually a really good list. I forgot about all of them. And the number one is Lorenzo Alexander. I remember that day when he got cut by Mike Shanahan, and I know Mike Shanahan did not want to do that, but they had to. They were forced to based on the roster cuts at that time, and it's so funny because just like Brian Arakpo, leaving here, everyone's saying not that very good of a pass rusher, just more special teams. He goes to Buffalo and becomes a sack leader. And just like Arakpo down in Tennessee did when he came, there's just echoing just pass rushers that leave here and just ball out.
Yeah, and last year, Ty and Secchi would have came in handy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And one that I was actually thinking of, Reed, was Jamison Crowder. Because thinking back to last year, he signed with the Jets. The Redskins were kind of depleted when we went into the season at wide receiver. And Jamison could have been that, the help over the middle of that slot route. But look, Steven Sims answered the call well. And credit to him. But I was just thinking on top of my head, like, I would have loved to see Jamison finish his career here because he was rated the best slot corner in the NFL, in 2015?
Slot receiver. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What did I say, slot corner?
Yeah. You got him and Kendall Fuller confused.
Yeah, I did. It is what it is, baby. Who cares? It is what it is. Now, so I want to talk about with you guys, how do we think the wide receiver targets are going to break down this year? Look, everyone's going to say, look, Terry McLaurin, we get it. But I want to know how involved you guys think Steven Sims is going to be. How involved Kelvin Harmon's going to be in this offense, and Logan Thomas with the heavy sets and with the addition of Antonio Gibson, who can line up at wide receiver or running back. So, Hall, I'll go to you first. How do you see the receptions breaking down for the wide receivers this year? Will Dwayne Haskins be able to get the ball a lot to them?
I actually kind of expect them to only let Dwayne Haskins come out and throw between 18 to 25 passes a game maximum. So distribution-wise, obviously, I would give Terry McLaurin about the lion's share of about 60 to 65% of those targets. But I will say that I think between Sims and Gibson, they're going to use him as the Curtis Samuel role like they did in Carolina. And he'll get more of the majority of the rest of the targets, as well as Logan Thomas, because obviously the tight end is a quarterback's best friend. But I do think that AGG is going to be a huge factor when we get down within I'd call it not the red zone, but the green zone with 40 yards, 30 yards in. And he'll be a deep threat in the back of the end zone, post routes, fade routes. And I think he's going to lead our team in receiving touchdowns possibly. But, I would definitely say the lion's share, Terry McLaurin, followed up by the combination of Gibson and Sims, and AGG bringing up the rear, but leading us in touchdown receptions.
Leading up the rear. I'm not sure about 60% to Terry McLaurin. Do you agree with Mike Hall, Maurice?
I think they're going to go with their hot hand. I mean, I think that Terry's going to get his targets, and rightfully so. But as he becomes more the number one option, other players are going to blossom. I think Logan Thomas is primed to have a really good season. I mean, we really have not had consistent tight end play for a while. I mean, Jordan Reed and all of his health issues that we don't have to deal with anymore. So we really have not had a chance to get a tight end established. So I would hope that we can do that. I mean, we saw when Carolina was who's their tight end of Greg Olsen.
Yeah.
I mean, he featured prominently in that offense. So hopefully Logan will feature prominently. And then also, the protege, Thaddeus Moss. Let's not forget about him.
That's true.
If he can make the team, he could be a nice threat too. And a lot of people think he has a chip on his shoulders because he wasn't drafted. So those are, I think, some fresh targets for Dwayne that potentially could lead to some progress in 2020.
Yeah, and look, Dwayne Haskins is going to need to hit his tight end if he's going to want to take the next step in the NFL. As soon as he is able to get that relationship with Logan Thomas, and everything else is going to fizzle out for him. What about you, Mike Reed? How do you see these receptions breaking out for the wide receivers this year?
Well, obviously, both of you guys have had great points. I mean, we know what Terry McLaurin's going to do. We hope there goes the light. We hope so. But I think one person that a lot of people are counting out, and look, we know we expect Logan Thomas to have a pretty good production as well as Antonio Gibson and Steven Sims, but Kelvin Harmon. Don't count Kelvin Harmon out. I know everybody wants to go ahead and anoint AGG as the receiver opposite McLaurin, but Kelvin Harmon only started about half the season last year, about 7 games, still at over 350 receiving yards. You project that to a rookie season, if he had started every game, then maybe he would have had over 700 receiving yards. And that's still, he's a very tough wide receiver. He's somebody who can go up and get the ball, and he could be somebody that Dwayne really trusts. They work out together, and he could look for him for first downs. He could look for him when they need some tough yardage, and he's somebody that's going to go up and get the ball. So I could see him actually producing and kind of being a dark horse to maybe be second on the team in receptions.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point because, look, last year the quarterback position for the Redskins was all over the place. You couldn't really build a relationship until the end of the season, and when you saw that, Kelvin Harmon was used a lot. And I remember that Detroit Lions game, never forget that catch, that one-handed catch he had behind his back, which is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, he's done nothing but prove that he can play in this league. Now, I think Steven Sims will have a big impact in this offense. He has that kind of Christian McCaffrey-esque kind of agility to him, and I think Scott Turner is going to lean on him a lot in the screen game and the short passing game to be able to extend. Because, you talk about with NFL offenses, they talk about the short passing game being used as run plays, getting those short intermediate yards to be able to make it second and short, third and short. So I think Steven Sims there makes a lot of sense for them. I think Hall was spot on, though. AGG, with his size and his speed, I think he is going to command a lot of catches from Dwayne Haskins. I mean, Ron Rivera, look at him going back to Carolina. Kelvin Benjamin, Devin Funchess, he loves the big wide receivers, and it would make a lot of sense for AGG to be the featured wide receiver because I think Terry McLaurin is going to be doubled a lot this season. The defenses are going to be keying on the Redskins, and they're going to say, okay, prove you can do it without Terry. Because if I was a defensive coordinator, that's what I would be doing, perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, I think AGG makes a lot of sense. He's got to win the job first, though. I mean, he's still young. He could be somebody who takes a couple years to kind of develop. Remember, he was a 4th-round pick, a mid-round pick. But I love AG. I love his skill set. I love what he brings to the table. In Washington, we've been looking for one of those big receivers you just throw it up to for a long time. So I would love to see AGG kind of take over that role.
I think it's clear that the Redskins, by selecting Gibson and AGG, they're looking for playmakers now.
Yeah.
I think McLaurin, McLaurin's the guy, but I think they want somebody. We're trying to figure out who's that second option.
Yes, exactly.
And I think if you take a page out of the Redskins' past, you think about the posse with Art Monk, Gary Clark, and Ricky Sanders. I mean, when those 3 guys were on the field, you didn't know who was going to kill you. And all 3 of them could kill you. And I mean, even to the fact where I think they're one of the only team or few teams that have 3 wide receivers to catch over 1,000 yards.
Yep.
I mean, if there's another team out there, I'm not sure. I don't know that.
I think it was the Colts one year did that too.
Right. So, but that's not an easy thing to do.
Right.
To feed 3 wide receivers 1,000 yards receiving, even as the league has become more passing heavy, and the quarterbacks are putting up monster yards. You still don't see teams with 3 wide receivers with 1,000 yards. So I think that the Redskins are definitely looking for that second and third option, and maybe they think that they found it in a draft. I think the receiver competition in training camp is going to be like the must-watch position group for 2020.
Yeah, and look, and I think you hit the nail right on the head, Maurice, because Ron Rivera, from the beginning, since he's come here to Washington, has said they're looking for that number 2 wide receiver. That's what they wanted to bring to this offense, and they went after Amari Cooper. They tried, but they went out and got AGG, and that makes a lot of sense for that to be the transition for the offense. But like Mike Reed said, he has to win the job. But if I'm Ron Rivera and Scott Turner, I love Kelvin Harmon. I think he produced a lot last season. But that he doesn't terrify you at the number 2 spot. You know what I mean?
Right.
Where AGG has that room to grow and could be a superstar type wide receiver where he could be a legitimate threat on the outside getting one-on-one coverage. I'm just not sure if Kelvin Harmon can beat one-on-one coverage as often as AGG does. But look, man, we'll see what the NFL comes out with because I'm not sure if you guys heard, but there's a possible proposal on the table for beginning of the season on time and without fans in the stands. Hall, did you hear that? How excited are you?
Yeah, I'm super excited, obviously, because I mean, just like I'm pretty sure I echo a lot of the country's sentiments when I say if there was going to be a football season this year, man, it would have been a wild, wild west out here, a wild, wild east, I should say.
Mhm.
But now, yeah, I mean, I've always kind of said in the back of my mind that it was going to start on time, if not like a week or two late, just because the way things have been progressing in the news, you can kind of see that no fans, obviously, but they were going to have maybe testing, be able to get testing done and have them in the training camp, maybe like late July, August. So, but like you said, just super excited and obviously fancy football. Can't forget about that. So, definitely hope everything goes according to plan.
Yeah, and look, I think one of the probably the more probable aspects of what's going to happen is they're probably going to take away 2 of those preseason games, and they're just going to have 2, the last 2 in the season, or just shove them back, because then the season can start. I think then you don't have to have fans in the stands. You can kind of slow ease into this thing, which is the right way to do it, in my personal opinion. What about you, Maurice? Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I think my statement is that whatever they need to do to start the season, week 1, without any interference, I'm down for it, right? So if there's no fans in the stands, I'm good. I'm golden. I'm Gucci. I just want to see I don't go to football games to watch the fans. I go to see them play the games.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge for, the teams and the NFL and the television networks, as far as the product, not hearing that roar of the fans in the background. So I would be experimenting on like camera angles, how you want to shoot the game,
Right.
So you don't have that fan experience, lack thereof.
Like a zoomed in on the field.
Exactly, zoomed in on the field and everything like that. I would even be supposed to maybe playing in a smaller venue with no fans, maybe in the practice facilities or something like that. I don't know. But they're probably playing in the stadiums and stuff like that. But I think the other thing too, I know we won't have fans in the beginning, but we really need to think about what the fan experience is going to be like post-COVID anyway. I mean, as far as tailgating goes, because if you've been to a tailgate party like I've been to, I'm definitely not social distancing.
I'm hugging people.
I'm hugging people. NFL women fans are way more friendlier at the game than they are in the real world. So there's a whole lot of issues that the social dynamics of the game is going to change.
Yeah, no more sharing beer bongs.
Yeah. Well, unless you got a COVID-19 test. So, but I think that, I think the big thing, as it relates to this situation, I just think everybody just needs to like come together and just try to get through this together. And, we're not going back to the way things were. We're moving forward. I mean, I think, we'll get some degree of normalcy.
Yeah, and I think the NFL would be smart in going to hit up Art Blank down in Atlanta and seeing how well they can fill that stadium with fake noise, seeing as they did so well a couple years ago with that. But I have heard that is an avenue that they're thinking of, and I honestly, I would, as lame as it would be with fake crowd noise, it would at least bring some sort of normalcy to it. And I agree with you, Maurice. I think you're right. I think the whole showing the fans, like showing the stadium while the game is going on, is going to be limited because they don't want to highlight the no people in the stands. So I think that kind of that camera angle above the field, the all 22 right above the quarterback kind of thing is going to be an avenue they could go down because then you could be more detailed into the game. What about you, Mike Reed? Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, of course I'm excited. What do we have to look forward to now that the last dance is over? It would be real talk. Yeah, it'll definitely be weird without fans. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys have watched any of these UFC fights without fans, but it's really weird. You can hear the managers yelling what they want their fighters to do. You can hear the hits connect. Like it's just completely different. It's almost eerie, but of course I'd be excited. I can't wait. I think Roger Goodell's 100% dead serious about like he wants to start immediately. I think that there's some older assistant coaches in the NFL, that would probably be terrified if they did catch something, looking at you, Wade Phillips, I don't think you could beat this. But another thing that'll be interesting is with NCAA. Like, if NCAA football happens or there's a shortened season, what's going to end up happening with the draft? You know, if they even have a season, what if they don't? And then what happens with the 2021 draft? You know, it's going to be, even if you just have a small sample size, it's still a lot of teams are going to miss on some prospects. It's going to be weird, but I'm excited. Of course, I'm excited.
The one
I
thing
think the Power 5 conferences are going to play.
Yeah.
So do I. I think that they will as well. But
Now,
some of these smaller schools,
right? You don't know. I mean, honestly, but hopefully they do end up coming out because, look, man, we need football badly. And the one thing that people are forgetting about is that these owners love money way more than they love being safe. And they want to be able to out there making money immediately. And they see the gold mine sitting in front of them. If the NFL is the only thing that's on TV, they already own a day of the week. They're going to own America for as long as this is open. And so they see this opportunity. I see the motivation behind it because it's not, they're not trying to tip their hand and saying that, you know, like, we don't care about safety, we want money more. But you can see them starting to edge that kind of defense, that kind of, we want to open, we need to make some money.
And who was it who tweeted out that NFL owners need to really start looking into buying green for all of their seats so that way they can play ads on the empty arenas on the sides during the game? It's $1 million idea. Possibly
that's pretty smart, actually.
Yeah.
That is a very smart idea, and I think a lot of people would be all over that.
yeah.
Would make a lot of sense. Now, one person I saw in particular said, you know, you can have fans in the stadium, but you can have them social distanced based on, like, you know, season ticket holders basically saying above their head, like, look, you can go to the game, you have to social distance. If we see you break any of that, it's revoked for the season. Right. I think Maurice, are you a season ticket holder?
No, I just go to a lot of games, man.
Okay.
I've robbed Peter to pay ball.
Right. I just didn't know. I didn't want some firsthand knowledge of the situation on how that would work. But I would imagine, like, hey, look, you have season tickets this year. It's fine. You can come, but you have to sign this waiver. You have to follow our rules in regarding of COVID-19 to be able to come here. And I think people would be all over that. And I think there would be a lot of money spent if that was an opportunity to buy those tickets. I think there would be a lot of fans all over that, and that would make a lot of money.
Also, too, especially with the outdoor stadiums, is that the transmission rate when you're outside is way lower than it is in an enclosed facility. So I think that helps a football degree, especially for a lot of outdoor stadiums, which pretty much all of the teams in the NFC East are. I mean, with the exception of Dallas, but they can open their stadium up.
Right. We want them to get it.
Yeah. But I think that, you know, we kind of know the guidelines according to the CDC as it relates to, you know, you need to wear a mask, you need to practice social distancing and things of that nature. So I think what the NFL should do is I would start off without fans at the beginning of the season, and then I would gradually, you know, include fans into the season and things of that nature. And, you know, whether that's at 50% capacity, you know, maybe you start off, like you said, you start with season ticket owners, then 50% capacity, and so on and so forth. But I mean, to me, the NFL is going to experience a revenue loss because, you know, when you don't have fans in the stands buying concessions and buying merchandise, you know, paying for parking tickets and things. To park at the stadium parking lot. I mean, that's a lot of revenue that's lost. So, you know, like you said before, you know, they don't want to give up the golden goose right now. So
it would be really smart for them, to be honest, if they came out and said, look, if you want to go to a Redskins game this season with this whole COVID talk, you might as well go buy season tickets. Because then you could have the first pick to be able to go in and watch the games, and I think that would be a selling incentive in itself. Sorry, Reed.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, no, you're good. And let's not beat around the bush here. You know, I mean, as Redskins fans, we should be very excited because if the NFL plays games without fans, we've been doing that for the last 2 years. We know what it's like to not have fans at the stadium. So we would have a leg up on the competition.
No, we know what it's like to have Redskins fans at the stadium, but other teams' fans show up.
Even with the other team's fans not being there, there was 15
because the
times.
Eagles fans are going to come and they're not going to practice social distancing at all.
And that's great. And we want that.
They're going to be out there just line the streets of horse poop, dude. They'll be busy all afternoon.
Wouldn't even have to serve concessions.
We don't even have to these hors d'oeuvres.
Oh, the Redskins are so nice. They prepped meals for us and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrible. That's just terrible stuff right there. All right, guys. Well, I think that's going to wrap up our show for today. I really appreciate you guys coming on, especially you, Maurice. With everything, I'm so happy to be a part of the Redskins tweet team. To be able just to be able to be a part of it is big for me in particular. So we're gonna carry it with honor, dude, and I really appreciate it because we won't forget this.
Oh no, not a problem, man. It's my pleasure, man. One of the things I enjoy, as a Redskins fan, beyond watching the games, is the camaraderie and kinship and friendship you build with fans, both at the games and on social media, and it just enhances the Redskins fan experience overall. So it's my pleasure.
Yeah, with all the negativity around the Redskins fans and losing fans and blah blah blah, we're a dying breed nowadays. It's nice to reach out to some other fans in other states and countries, and like you said, just talk about the Redskins and enjoy the happiness of being a Redskins fan.
And I think it's a golden opportunity to give other Redskins fans a platform to talk about their fan experience and what they're thinking about the team, because a lot of fans, they never get that experience. No one ever asked them, how do you feel about the Redskins?
Right.
So I think there's some golden opportunity that will help us grow your podcast that I'm looking forward to partnering on.
So excited.
Yeah. So I'm very excited. Redskins tweet team is an awesome place. It's an awesome little section on Twitter there. You got a lot of positivity with Redskins fans. And like Hall said, that's kind of rare today. And once again, that's hashtag Redskins tweet team to join the talk.
Yeah, absolutely. And Hall hit it right on the head. We are a scarce in this region, especially with being all DC sports teams. Usually you have fans being a fan of one team and then a fan of a team in another state, where we're all DC, baby, and we really appreciate it because look, the fact that we get to talk to more fans, the better. I just talking Redskins football is all we want to do. It's what we love to do, and if more people want to do it, makes us more happy.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
I am God, I think. I'm Mike.
Jesus. Come on, man. All right, Maurice, again, thank you so much for coming on, brother. Also, I forgot to announce, Maurice is actually going to be a scheduled guest at least once every month throughout the entire season, throughout the year. So that way we can all still grasp with one another, talk about what's going to happen to possible meetups at away games and everything, to be able to talk about our fan experience. So make sure you guys tune in throughout the season to hear Maurice, because you're not going to want to miss it. Remember, guys, hashtag Redskins tweet team. All right, we'll see you next time. Redskins football. Woo!